thank you once again to Threefold and Rohit specifically for organizing this. I see that two-wheeler forum is growing year on year, and it's a fantastic indication of how the industry is responding today towards the opportunities in the two-wheeler market. With that, I would also want to thank Mr. Srivastava for putting some very, very valid points today. Very clearly he spoke about the need to set up cell manufacturing in India, because today, if you look at the value chain, one of the critical elements when it comes to battery manufacturing is cells. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, it's only the pack or the modules that are being done here, whereas the cells are still being imported. Another very valid point you made, sir, is on the policies being technology agnostic. I think that is something that we cannot really, emphasize enough, right? All policies should be technology agnostic, and it should be the choice of the industry to pick and choose technologies that is going to help them in regulatory compliance. So with that, let me start with Mr. Gill. First of all, congratulations on the new two models that were introduced, the Optima and the Nix. So since the panel discussion is about looking ahead, right, opportunities for the next 2 years, I'm not going to dwell too much upon, the industry right now, the slowdown that we are facing, because everybody knows that. So let's try to look ahead, the opportunities that we can work on and see how we can come out of this, slowdown. So, Mr. Gill, I just wanted to talk to you about the two models which you introduced, very recently. I was reading an article that said that one of them is specifically aimed at the private buyer, whereas one of them is aimed at the commercial buyer. So that was very interesting for me, because we've seen very rarely that an OEM introduces model specifically for a private buyer and then for a commercial buyer. So from your perspective, how do you see the differentiation in customer perceptions when it comes to priorities? What does a private buyer look for? What does a commercial buyer look for? So tell us your perspective of positioning two very similar products in the industry aimed at two very, very different customer segments.
Thank you, Kaushik. Yes, yesterday we launched in Bangalore these two products. The main differentiation between the two is the type of usage. And to a certain extent in the commercial segment, it is much more not only usage, it is also misuse and abuse that one has to take care of when it comes to electric. The reason behind that is in electric, the conversion from petrol to electric for a rider creates a lot of hassles, because he is used to running a product in petrol scooters in a very tough way, and some of them also make a lot of money when they take out petrol and they push bills of maintenance to their bosses. So when the electric is given to them, the first reaction is, where is that my tips of the day that I used to earn out of this petrol scooter? I'm no longer going to get that 50, 60 rupees a day extra. So instead of using or misusing, he starts abusing the product. So the product has to withstand that. Not only the product has to withstand, the psychology of the rider has to change. And that is a dual responsibility of the industry or the manufacturer, as well as the customer who is buying this product for us. We have had experiments with large such deliveries where there was a 3 months exercise of conversion of a product or adaptation of a product to misuse, as well as talking to the riders, telling them some good points about the products, and also awarding them, differentiating them between good riders and bad riders. That led to the large-scale adoption. When it comes to personal, it is very simple. There are two types of customers who are buying products. One of them is wanting an equal performing product. And unfortunately today, equal performing product is double the cost or more than a petrol scooter. Whereas a large percentage of people have started looking at a product not from equal performance, but from a mobility solution, which means point A to point B in a convenient, comfortable, and home-to-home type of a solution way. So those are the customers who are buying it, not necessarily the buyers who are using a motorcycle, but generally the buyers who are using it as a second vehicle in the family, who had a small car or already a petrol scooter or a motorcycle. Now they want another vehicle, they go in for a personal bike.
Mr. Gill, I think that's a very valid point you made, especially on the abuse part. So today, a lot of OEMs, especially when coming out with new products, especially in the electrification space, spend considerable amount of time and effort in creating awareness, in helping the customer understand the usage, the purpose of the vehicle, and so on. So where were the challenges you faced when it came to improving awareness or improving education among the customers in terms of usage characteristics for the vehicle, what needs to be done and what shouldn't be done? So what were your experience and learnings there?
I will come to commercial later, but largely the awareness is so much missing in the country on electric mobility, especially on the availability of the products on the road. Because on the road, when you see an electric scooter, whether it is mine, Jitender's or Ayush, you can't even distinguish whether it is a petrol scooter or an electric scooter. And in total, there are only 400,000 scooters for the last 11 years on the road. Some of them would have gone out. So such a poor visibility on the road and hardly any awareness is leading to hardly any adoption. So the awareness has to be at two big levels. And one of them, Anil is not here. I have been requesting Anilji that can government participate in awareness? Because when I talk about, as a head of association or head of the organization, when I sort of talk, it is taken as a marketing language. That, oh, this scooter is very good, buy it. But when government talks, and when they have, for example, I have been advocating putting electric mobility under Swachh Bharat campaign as a clean air campaign. Because Swachh Bharat and clean air has to be together. And electric mobility is great answer for clean air. So if it is weaved in and comprehensively talked, wherever we talk Swachh Bharat, we talk clean air. This product, electric mobility, good for the country, good for society, good for health, good for your pocket. That will make so much of a difference in awareness. That's lacking. That's not convincing from the manufacturers. That's one level. When we talk to industry, we don't have much money to, in fact, invest into making people aware. So we always cut corners. We advertise. We don't make them aware. We don't make them educated enough. But at a micro level, what is happening in many of the around 960 network that the industry has today of dealerships, dealers have started educating. Dealers, when a customer walks in, whether he buys or not, he is well educated about the pros and cons of the product, and that is slowly beginning to make people aware about who are the fence sitters who come to the showrooms and they try to understand what is electric mobility. They buy or they don't buy, but they understand what is electric mobility.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Gill. With that, I'll come to you, Mr. Sanghi. I think when Mr. Gill spoke about the role of the dealership, I think there is nobody else better in this country than you to talk about the perspective from the dealership angle. Now, obviously, you know, I happened to listen to the interview, your interview with Nabil Khan a few months ago on how the industry is coping and how dealerships are playing a role today in not only, you know, supporting the entire ecosystem, but also changing the way vehicles are being sold. So today, the average customer, you know, be it four-wheelers or two-wheelers, right? The average customer who walks into the showroom is much, much more knowledgeable than maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So the way products are being sold are changing, right? From your perspective, you know, how do you see, let's say, for example, digitization playing a role in the way products or technologies are being positioned, and how do you see the communication changing from the OEM's perspective, and where do you see a dealership playing an integral role in this entire ecosystem?
Thanks, Kaushik, and I think you made the right start when you said that the customer today is far more knowledgeable than, and in fact what we find is that the customer today is far more knowledgeable than our own sales executives. So I think when he comes to a showroom, he is not looking for knowledge. What he's looking for is an experience. What he's looking for is clearing of certain doubts. And what he's looking for is touch and feel of the product. And I think as dealers, what we need to do is, one, increase our digital presence. There was a time when dealers thought that digitization was the work of the OEM and not the dealer. And what is increasingly becoming clear is that digitization is far more important for us than for the manufacturers, and we have an active role to play in digitization. Two, how do we make the customer experience the best when he walks into the showroom, where he is primarily decided what he wants to buy and why he wants to buy? How do we help him take a decision on how he wants to buy and where he wants to buy and how he's going to use the product? And I think that is changing the entire perspective of how our salesmen function. And like we rightly say, and I think Mr. Anand Mahindra once said so, that our salesmen today need to be storytellers. They need to build an experience. They need to build a perspective and not so much talk about specifications and measurements of a product.